The lessons are many. The lessons are many. But I think as a Black woman, what I've learned is that everyone is figuring things out the same way that you are. Everyone is figuring things out the same way that you are. The other day, I was in the lift with our managing partner. I'm at Hogan Lovells now. So after my articles, I was recruited to Hogan Lovells, Johannesburg. So I was in the lift and we're talking about a transaction that we're on. And he just expresses this sentiment of, I feel like I'm out of my depth, or that like I'm just, trying to do something that's out of my comfort zone. And I asked him, do you ever feel like you've got it and that you handled it and that everything is done and you've got it down pat? He's like, no, it's always a learning curve. There's always a learning curve. It's always steep and everyone is always figuring things out as you are. And I think for me, if I had grasped that lesson sooner, I might have, gone into certain things with less judgment and less, strain on myself.
Sazi, thank you for taking the time to talk to me about women in the legal profession. We celebrate 100 years of women in law this year in South Africa. We've come a long way. And today I want us to reflect on your journey as a woman in the legal profession. So let's start at the beginning. Tell us more about yourself.
My name is Sazi Tshangana. I am a young woman from the Eastern Cape, born and bred. I came to UWC, to Cape Town, to study. At the time, I wasn't really sure about what I was going to study. But I came here and, in a long story, small nutshell, I ended up studying LLB. And came here, enjoyed my time here, had a great time at UWC. And now I'm in Joburg, based there and practicing corporate law over there. So that's a bit of a nutshell about me.
Thank you. Let's jump into your journey a little bit. So Eastern Cape. Where in the Eastern Cape?
So I was born in Mthatha. I'm a middle child, but I'm the oldest daughter, which is a special thing in like African tradition. Born in Mthatha, then when I was about a few months old, we moved to East London and I studied there my junior schooling all the way up to high school. So between Mthatha and East London, I'm there and my parents are still there to this day.
So then you came to UWC after obviously completing high school. And now you have an LLB from the University of the Western Cape. Why did you eventually decide law? This is the career that I want to go in.
My journey to law wasn't a simple or straight or an easy one. Initially, I wanted to do accounting, funny enough. I wanted to be an accountant because my father's an internal auditor and I'm a daddy's girl. So I was like, I'm going to, follow in his footsteps. And at the back of my mind, like at a very small, there's, I think, this thing is not for you, but I was stubborn and I really wanted to be an accountant. And I applied here for accountancy. But maths, marks, all of that kind of stuff didn't really work out. But then I came to UWC at the beginning of what would have been my first year, as I call it. And I knocked on all the doors at the faculties because one thing I knew was that I couldn't go back home. I couldn't not study that year. I knew that is something that wasn't an option for me. So because I knew that, I decided that wherever I can get my foot in, I'm going to get my foot in there, do my best, and then I'll figure it out from there. And UWC gave me the opportunity to do that. So of all the faculties, the arts faculty opened its door to me. And at the time, it felt like a step back. It felt like something that was not exactly what I wanted. And I wasn't very happy about it, if I'm completely honest. But obviously, in retrospect, hindsight is always 20/20. It is the best thing that could have possibly happened for me. It's the best thing that could have happened for me. And so I came here and I did 1 year at arts. Incredible here. Enjoyed that year so much. Did social science subjects, and I got a real feel of what I'm actually good at, which is theory and words, which is something that I'd known but had been too stubborn to admit. So I got a chance to kind of, see what really I'm about. And then in that year, I got, funnily enough, involved with a lot of law students. I was friends with law students. I had relatives who were law students here. And I just got kind of engrossed in the UWC law culture. I was an art student sitting at moot courts, sessions, and I was intrigued. I was really enthralled by, the arguing and everything that goes on in that kind of arena. And then I think towards the end of first semester, I called my mom up. I was like, I think I need to be studying law. And not because the Bachelor of Arts wasn't something that I was enjoying, I really was. But I just knew it in my heart that I should be studying law. And towards the end of that year, I decided to do an internal transfer. And fortunately, because my marks were really good, it was a smooth flow from arts into law. And that's how I ended up studying law at the University of the Western Cape. And like I said, at that time, I felt like that year was a bit of a delay for me, if I can say. But what it did for me was set me up so well for my first year of law, because by that time I was clear about where everything was. I knew, how to work at Gamva. I knew where the library was. I knew all of the resources that I'd gathered in my first year of arts. So I could hit the ground running on my first year of being an LLB student. And I think that's the year that kind of set my university trajectory on a upward kind of a stance. And I would not do it differently looking back. I absolutely wouldn't.
That's an amazing journey, and I agree with you. And I think it's something that a lot of students have to consider before you choose a career. Do a BA. 1 year, and I think it must be kind of a universal thing throughout, just to get that sense of where I want to be.
And on that point, the Bachelor of Arts the LLB used to be only a postgraduate degree. So you needed to have another degree first before you could go and study law. And because things happened the way that they did for me, I understand why. Because law challenges you to think in a way that's different than you've thought before. But I also understand why it was converted into an undergraduate degree as well, to lower the barriers to entry, for people who are coming from disadvantaged backgrounds and who don't necessarily have that financial backing to be able to do one degree and then another again. So I understand the give and take there as well, but I get it. As someone who walked the way that I've walked, I understand why it was structured that way in the past.
So you choose UWC. Why?
Why UWC? And a lot of the time people are like, oh my gosh, we didn't even know UWC is a place in the world and where it is. And for me, UWC is the place that gave me a chance. I have family who came to UWC, so I'd always known it as a really good institution. My uncle came here. I think he studied public administration. He went on to study further at Harvard. So for me, UWC was an institution that really could set me up in life, because I'd seen it set up people in my close proximity to live lives that are very successful and fulfilling, in all kinds of areas. So I knew what UWC was because there were people in my life who had come here and had made successes of themselves. And like I'd said earlier on, when I came into UWC, I had family who was studying law here. So my mother's cousin was here, and she was kind of a forerunner for me in that sense, to see that. And she was doing excellently as well. So I've had examples of people who had done excellent things at UWC. So for me, it was almost a no-brainer. It was like just one of the options on the table for me. And this is the place that gave me a chance. And I took it. That's why.
Great stuff. And you were amazing. You were even recruited into the academic excellence program, the Achievers Excellence Program, the AP. Please tell us a little bit about that.
So the AP program is, I think, head and shoulders the highlight of the 5 years that I spent here. And that's because of the relationships that I fostered from that program, be it in the university itself, the fellows who were part of that program who have gone on to do other amazing things. At the AP, we were really, equipped and structured in a way that enabled us to go into the world and do things that ordinarily wouldn't have done. For me, AEP was such a deep and personal experience and encounter, and I think I could speak forever about it. But AEP was almost the first point at UWC that gave me a thumbs up to say, you are excellent. You've been doing amazing. Because at that point, I had come in as an art student and as a law student. I didn't have like this long, goal in mind that, I'm going to be the best in my class. I wasn't focusing on that. I wasn't goal orientated. I was rather task orientated. If I had a task in front of me, my only goal was to get above 70%. If I had a quiz, just above 70%. If I had a test, just above 70%. If I had an exam, just do above 70%. If you don't, it's fine. If you do, amazing. And very often, because I'd cultured then myself into that mentality, I would study obviously for above a 70, and a lot of the time I would get more than that. So entering the program was a huge affirmation of who I was, a huge affirmation of the work that I'd put in, a huge pat on the back that I needed at that time. And not just me, but other fellows of the student. They pick the top 5 students in every faculty. And to be recognized in that way for me was life-changing. It was so affirming. So and the program itself is incredible. The university invested in us. They put money behind us. They put resources, skills, brains. It was invaluable. I loved it.
And that paid off because you were recruited as a candidate attorney at Bowmans. Please tell us more about that and what led to that specific opportunity.
Now, I don't want to sound like an advert for AEP, but as part of the AEP program, they gave us mentors, right? So at some point, I was just engaging with my mentor, who at the time was Judge Papier of the High Court. So that was the level of investment, So Judge Papier and I were driving to Mitchell's Plain to do an outreach at some point. And it's that conversation that I still, to this day, kind of mark as the starting point of a shift in my perspective. Because when I came to UWC, because of the history of the institution, right, and the way that we're kind of conscientized as the legal minds of UWC, we have a strong lean towards public law, human rights, which is excellent and amazing, and an invaluable part of the culture of the university. But in the conversation I had with Judge Papier, he changed my mind because of his experience and because I was ready to hear that at that time. What he told me was that there's a seat for you at a table where people who don't look like you are. And he said to me, go into big law, try it. If you hate it, it's fine. You can always pivot into something else. But I can see you, and I think that is some way that you'll find a space for yourself. And I thought, okay, why not? And I got online and I applied to VAC programs and all of those things. In fact, I applied for a bursary at Bowmans. And then from my bursary interview, it really went so well. They invited me to do the summer VAC program. Went up to Sandton. It was an incredible experience of about a week. And then when I walked into the building, I knew that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. So it really cemented that for me, that I'm supposed to be in that big corporate commercial space. And everything after that was just an affirmation of that fact. And so after VAC work, I was invited for selection day, and selection day also went great. And after selection day, I think at that point I was starting my 3rd year. I got the offer to to start my articles at Bowmans. And that began for me in 2021. And it was also an incredible experience, learning from the best lawyers in the field, just doing really good work and just getting the best kind of legal training that you could hope for as an aspirant legal practitioner. So that was incredible.
Bowmans is also full of UWC.
Yes.
A lot of UWC
Yes.
graduates. It's like almost a place to go. It's like Bowmans know this is a place where they will get excellent scholars. But I'm glad that conversation kind of put something in your mind. Give it a chance, because you choose something that a normal Black woman, and especially a black lawyer who's a woman, would not do. You now specializes in merger and acquisitions and private equity. So why that? How did you get into that?
Yeah. So at how our program is structured, right, is that you have 4 rotations and you have to do at least 1 corporate rotation and 1 litigation rotation. So I did all my litigation rotations in my first year. So 6 months in disputes, corporate commercial, and then I did 6 months in employment. Loved corporate commercial, enjoyed it, great experience. Didn't enjoy employment that much, so that was kind of a rule out. And then this beginning of my second year, I started in M&A, and so typical. And I was so determined not to be that typical story of the person who comes in thinking they'll be a litigator and then the M&A bug bites them. But the M&A bug bit me, and there's nothing that I can do about that. And why M&A? And people ask me this, and I think the simple answer is I enjoy the way that it makes me think. I enjoy what it engages, particularly about my mind. Litigation requires a different kind of thinking than transactional work. And I think for me, what was more out of my comfort zone and my usual, line of leaning was the M&A and corporate and commercial and transactional work. And for me, the natural then segue would have been into private equity. And at the time, because of the timing of things, I had a great kind of a role model in the PE space who showed me kind of, this is something that you could do. And I was like, okay, I think this is something that I'd be interested in. And because PE and M&A are so closely linked, I rotated into the PE team. And I really liked it and I enjoyed it. And I knew, okay, cool, this is the stream that I really would like to take my career. And I think a lot of that rests on the bedrock of the conversation that I had with my AP mentor, that I want to be in the room where people who look like me aren't. And I know that's an uncharted path or uncharted territory and not the easy way to go. But I didn't do this degree. I didn't do this job because it was easy. I think I'm following my intrigue, I'm following my curiosity, I'm following the challenge. And that's why I love law. That's why I chose to study law. And that's why I think law is such a good fit for me, because it challenges me in all the places where I'm weak, but also enhances my strengths and plays on all the places that I'm already strong at in a very kind of interesting interplay. So that's why I picked M&A and I picked PE. For me, it was just a clear thing that this is it. Like, this is why I did this.
Excellent. It seems to me that you're one of those individuals who like a challenge. If it's a challenge and it makes you think, like you say, that this is the thing that intrigues you, and that intrigue then brings the best out of you. But you have been now for a while in corporate South Africa. So what is the biggest lesson that you have learned so far as a black woman?
Sure. The lessons are many. But I think as a black woman, what I've learned is that everyone is figuring things out the same way that you are. Everyone is figuring things out the same way that you are. The other day, I was in the lift with our managing partner. I'm at Hogan Lovells now. So after my articles, I was recruited to Hogan Lovells, Johannesburg. So I was in the lift and we're talking about a transaction that we're on. And he just expresses this sentiment of, I feel like I'm out of my depth, or that like I'm just, trying to do something that's out of my comfort zone. And I asked him, do you ever feel like you've got it and that you handled it and that everything is done and you got it down pat? He's like, no, it's always a learning curve. There's always a learning curve. It's always steep and everyone is always figuring things out as you are. And I think for me, if I had grasped that lesson sooner, I might have, gone into certain things with less judgment and less, strain on myself.
Great stuff. Let's talk about the 100 years that we're celebrating this year in South Africa. So There's now 100 years since the first woman kind of entered the legal profession in South Africa. So, what are your take as a young woman in the legal profession? What is your reflections? Do you think it will be better the next 100 years for women in the legal profession?
It's a difficult question, because you have to think first about the legal profession as it is currently and women's role in it. If you walk into a lecture hall now, you will probably see a great number of women. You'll see many students who are Black, brown, and who are women. Then you go a little bit higher and you go into kind of the top echelons of the firm. You'll still see them as candidate attorneys and maybe associate ones. But as you go higher and as the altitude increases and the air gets a little bit thinner, the women disappear. There's a very high attrition rate for women attorneys, especially those that are Black. And I don't know what the future looks like for us, right? But what I do know is that we are worth fighting for, and that we might have to fight for our place in the profession, but it's a fight worth having, because it's important for the women who come after us to be able to look into the profession and see people that look like them, because representation isn't everything, but it does matter. It absolutely does matter. It isn't everything, but it really, really, really matters. Because, and I'll speak from my experience, the best learnings I've had and the most growth I've experienced in my career has been at the hands of a woman. It's just true for me. So if we are to raise up legal practitioners who are meticulous, who can think well and think creatively, there are things that women have to offer to the profession that I think is worth fighting for. And I can only hope that in 100 years to come, there will be more and more and more of us, even at the highest levels, and not as the only one, but in a room of many. Yeah, that's what I can hope for.
So let's talk about, on that note, let's talk about the next 30 years of South Africa, because next year we're celebrating 30 years of democracy in South Africa, and we hasn't have or didn't have a woman as a president in South Africa. So what are your reflection as a woman on the state of our democracy? Will it last?
I hope it does. I am an optimist. I'm someone who carries a lot of hope. And I think it's in line with UWC's motto, from hope to action through knowledge. And we need to bridge the gap from hoping to acting. But I think South Africa's democracy is kind of at its identity crisis stage, which I think is it's a posit, like it's proper. We're turning 30. When you turn 30 as a person, there's certain things that you think about, you reflect on. I don't want to call it a crisis stage, but there's a lot of movement that happens around that time. And I think our democracy is in that phase. And that going into the next 30 years, I hope for a stabilizing and a maturing, and that we can put our feet on the ground and start to grow, that we, as a democracy, we move out of the struggle and we move into growing and into flourishing. And obviously these are steep and lofty ideals, but I think we have to have them. We have to chart a vision for the future. We have to cast our eye into what we want as a nation. And I think it's important for us to keep optimistic, even though it's not easy. The easy thing is to be cynical. But we have a good thing going in South Africa. We have an incredible legal system. We have an incredible constitution that was designed in these very halls of UWC, negotiated and drafted for growth and for change. And I think it's important for us to hold on to those ideals.
All right. Finally, you've walked this road a little bit, but there is a young woman who's looking to you and many other women and might be watching this and say, I would like to follow her footsteps. So on that note, do you have any advice for a young woman who want to enter the legal profession?
I do, funny enough. I will say what I might have wanted to hear when I was starting out. It's that be able to make mistakes, get comfortable with being imperfect, get comfortable with making mistakes. The kind of a person who does law and pursues this kind of a career and goes on to do it at higher levels is the kind of a person who isn't good at making mistakes. Make your mistakes quickly, make them well, and move on from them and learn that skill. That's the only way you're going to grow. You won't grow from theorizing and from thinking only. Growth is through action. Move. That's what I'll do. Do it imperfectly, but move. Take an action. That is the only thing I'd say, because I spend so much time in my head, so much time worrying about things and how things might be and how my work is and how it might be presented, but no one expects it to be perfect. So just do the thing and keep it moving and you will get perfect in time. So yeah, focus on action and move forward. That's what I would say.
Sazi, thank you very much. I appreciate this. I appreciate this conversation, and I know that many young women listening to this, many men would listen to this and just be amazed by the wisdom and the lessons that you could share today. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.